Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Know Your Shit podcast, where our knowledge and pride in what we do drives us to be excellent. My name is Josh Cadillac, and once again, you're stuck with me in the driver's seat for today's show as we learn how to stop chasing paychecks and how to start building a business we can be proud of. And we do this by interviewing some of the most successful people in businesses across the world, across the spectrums, to see how they've achieved success. We have a great guest for you today, and the person of Mr. Randy Jones. Randy, thanks so much for being with us.
Oh, I'm excited to be here. Of course.
So, Randy, why don't you tell everybody what it is you do?
Well, I came to the Outer Banks. I don't know if you're familiar with the Outer Banks, North Carolina.
Sure.
Beautiful resort beach community. Came here in 93 and was a lawyer for the first 8 years and just decided I didn't want to be a small town attorney. I did mostly criminal law. So we thought we were going to move. I thought I was going to move to a bigger city, specialized law, but I just could not leave the beach. And one of my clients, as I said, I did primarily criminal law, but you do a little bit of everything when you're in a small town like this. And one of my clients was a big developer here in the Outer Banks, and he was doing a new development, asked me to help out. That was back in, I think, 2000. And I said, there's no way I'm going to sell real estate, but I'll give you my summer, because this guy was just super successful. He had a trainer that travels all over the country with new home sales. So I'm always open to learning. Yeah, just if I can learn and sit with those guys and learn how to sell, I thought it'd be about a 2 or 3 month gig. And that was in 2000, and I've been in real estate ever since. So that's what I've been doing here in the Outer Banks.
Gotcha. And what do you like best about it?
It's a good question. It's changed, as you know, a lot over the last few years, but it's getting back to what I like best. And it's just truly helping people get where they want to get. It sounds simple. People, in real estate, the last few years, as crazy it's been, especially in the resort market, it's almost like take a number and you can help someone get into a house, but we're getting back into the tougher markets. And I've always had the ability to just talk to people. I always say I talk to them like I talk to my mom. She's passed away in 2016, but she's still with me when I'm doing sales. And if you can be as honest as you are with your family member or your mom when you're talking to clients, and you can really get to where they really need to go. Because as you know, I think not everybody tells you the truth all the time. Even if they're not trying to lie to you, they just hold stuff back. And my law background helps me get to really where they want to go. And I'm able to have those tougher conversations with them. And ultimately, it just leads to much better experience for everybody.
Sure. So where do you think all the successes come from for you?
I think one is just the belief, always wanting to, or always believing that I'm going to be successful. I don't really know where I got that. I think probably my grandfather he is a successful businessman. But no matter what I was going to do, I remember when I was leaving law, one of my buddies was a probation officer. And he couldn't believe I was going into a profession where I didn't know how much money I was going to make. I was a law partner at the time, and I was going into real estate. And I think we were playing golf. I remember looking at him and asking him how much money he made. And it was not a whole lot of money. And I said, the tougher question is, how do you go to work every day knowing exactly what you're making? So I've always had a confidence, and I work hard. I mean, it's, when I got into real estate, people say, well, how are you doing so well? I was like, well, I show up before you do, and I usually leave till you do. And maybe I don't do that all the time now as much because I've got a lot of other things going on, but it's still, you got to put in the time.
It's totally a thing. You've got to do the work. So what do you think, if you were to take and try to quantify it, what do you think in your makeup makes you good at what you do?
I care. I mean, I think that's one of the biggest things is ultimately really care. That was a problem I had in law. I was a criminal defense attorney, and I was too attached to everything. And it's a lot different when you're not just buying or selling a house, you're dealing with somebody's life.
Sure.
And I had clients who were going to go to jail for 10, 20, on up if they were found guilty. And I knew most of the time I cared more than they did, which was really hard to understand, but I didn't
Yeah.
understand their position as much. But and so that's carried over. When I got into real estate, I went right into coaching. I didn't have time to learn the process. I'm always open to learning from better people, aligning myself with people that know more. And so I got right into national real estate coaching. And one thing that they always said is don't be attached to the outcome. And not sure if I always believe that because, being attached means you care, and it really, again, going back to treat them like a family member, you really care about the outcome.
Yeah, yeah. So obviously, with when you start to work for yourself, there are disappointments, there are unmet expectations. How do you manage yourself when there are those disappointments?
That's a good question because that's one that I've always struggled with because I've never in my mind met my expectations. I've
Sure.
always had really high expectations. And, but I think when you set goals and you just keep doing it, you can't look backwards at what I did last year or, I think a lot of expectations comes ego. And if you
Sure.
can remove the ego out of that and then be a little bit more realistic about looking at why you didn't meet them, then what maybe changes, just small changes. If you change what you're doing by 5-10%, that's a huge difference over the course of a career. And so you
Sure.
keep making those 5% changes, 10% changes. And I'm still learning, still wanting to meet those expectations. I guess that's
Yeah, we all.
the
I don't know that I've ever met anybody that feels like they've fully arrived. They're still chasing it. It seems to be the entrepreneur's burden that we set the carrot out in front of ourselves, and we never. A lot of us never let ourselves feel like we ever are going to catch the carrot. Um,
and
and
real estate's a tough one because you get a lot of false accolades, a lot of like, how great people are doing. You see when people advertise how many millions they sold, but so it's a tough one with
yeah,
social
sure.
media and everything. Just to not compare, I just would rather put myself in like I'm doing today. You put yourself in front of others that you can learn from that have achieved more, and just no matter where it is, you just keep learning, and I think
Yeah,
that helps a lot.
it's a thing. So I know you've got a project going on right now, Randy. We were talking about it a little bit. Why don't you give our listeners a little taste of what it is that you're doing right now?
It's a good segue because you talk about achieving expectations. One of the things in real estate that I've done well is just continue, been very consistent with relationships and just talking. Yeah, I'm in a resort area. So I may call you and talk to you on the phone, and you're like, there's no way I'm selling this house. But I'll keep calling you, keep in touch, keep answering any questions you want to be. And I'll have clients that are 15 years, even 20 years past that turn into clients.
Yep.
And that's tough in real estate because, when I went into coaching, they're like, if they're not going to buy in 30 days, you got to move on. And that's simply not the case in this type of market. And one of those potential clients owned just this hotel right down the road from where I live. I'm right on the beach. I'm looking right now as we talk at the ocean out my office window. And he had a 20 room old hotel that was originally built in 1954, and then he doubled the size in 1970. And that's old for Outer Banks. And we don't have a whole lot of older buildings here. And developed a relationship. I looked back in my notes. I talked to him for 16 straight years, and finally in 2022 was able to buy the hotel from it. And I bought it with the intentions of renovating it, keeping it. I'm in Kitty Hawk, North Carolina, and it's a little more older feel. We don't have a lot of development on the beach, which I love, and so I wanted to keep it Kitty Hawk, as I say, and keep it old feeling and just renovate it. But as we got into it, I've got a building partner, and he's really knowledgeable on the building side of things. It didn't make sense to renovate this. Built in 1970, it was falling apart. I mean, literally, there are septic tanks that didn't have a bottom to them, and it
Oh,
was pretty bad. So we through a lot of hard work, a lot of not accepting no for an answer. We've got now a 47 room boutique hotel with an 85 room restaurant bar, fully approved, ready to go, right here on the beach road, oceanfront access.
nice.
So we're excited about it. We need it here in the Outer Banks. It's the location. That's why I kept talking to them for 16, 17 years. It's just an absolute perfect location. I wouldn't want to live or vacation anywhere else than where we are right here.
No,
And
gotcha. So the project is approved. Are you getting ready to build? What's the position you're in now?
yeah, we went through it's taken 2 years. The approval process has been really interesting because it's all non-conforming. If we tried to build new on this site, there's just no way we would even have a hotel, let alone the 47 rooms. I remember sitting in with the engineer, one of the early meetings, and I mentioned I want a coffee shop in the hotel. And he shushed me and said, "You can't call it a coffee shop or the town's never going to approve it. There's no way we're going to get this in." And now we've got an 85 seat restaurant bar with a conference room above it with ocean views. And so just not accepting no and keep pushing through the process. It's fully entitled. So that means all the septic has been approved, the health department approvals.
Yep.
We've got full plans finished. Everything's ready to go, but for the pylons in the ground. And that is because what started out as about an $8 million project is about a $19-20 million project now. So it's
Wow.
really grown, bigger than I could ever imagine. But when you look at the numbers and you look at what we need here in the Outer Banks, I couldn't be more excited too. It's just
Gotcha.
got to keep pushing through.
What kind of returns do you think the investors are looking at on something like that?
We've had, obviously we've had the feasibility studies, we've had third party studies, and conservative, just our estimates are 18% off the bat on cash investment. But that's one thing that, I love the title of your podcast, Know Your Shit. The things I do well, I know really well. And getting this project to where we've gotten, I think with the builder and the way we've been able to, I don't want to say manipulate the town, but work with the town because they really want this project. We've done an incredible job. I don't think any developer could have gotten it to where we are. And we're not developers. My partner's developed some on his own. I'm a real estate agent, attorney. But now we're in the raising money, or we're in the getting the thing over the finish line financially. And that's where I don't know my shit is, where I should. So it's become more difficult. We're trying to figure out.
There's a lady that I can put you in touch with that does a lot of this, but she does syndication model through tokenization. And she would probably be a very good one to talk to take and make the project even that much cooler. Because when you use tokenization, it streamlines the syndication model quite a bit by making it easier for folks to liquidate their position and sell their position to someone else without having to go through the complicated process that syndication usually calls. I don't know why my camera just went crazy and decided to zoom in on me there, but
The money shot.
I guess so. The camera thought what I was saying must have been important. I don't know.
Yeah, we've looked at syndication, and that's kind of the avenue. Originally, we had a couple partners ready to go. Unfortunately, something happened personally with one of them, but I don't think that was the right way to go. I think it's been a blessing because we've taken a step back and started looking at syndication. And I'm not as familiar. I do understand on the very basics of what you're talking about, and it just allows people to get in at a much lower level,
Potentially,
and allows them to get out as well, I guess.
The deal is it's the same syndication model, but rather than your ownership rights being conveyed in some other way, they're vested in the digital tokens. And so the digital tokens represents their syndication percentage. So you come up with a value of what the token is going to be. A project your size might be big enough to even go, because it's going to be about matter. The thing that's going to be the limiting factor is going to be the compliance with SEC guidelines. And so to stay Reg D, you're still going to need accredited investors, and that's going to limit uh,
Right.
the how small the dollar value buy-in is going to be. I mean, if your price point was high enough, you could actually go like Reg A plus and have retail investors be able to get into the investment, just regular Joe Schmo. And then you could have a token value that's very low, so that you're raising capital. Big money, small money, it doesn't really matter. The cool thing with the tokenization model is, if it's done properly, is that a lot of the reporting is built right in, and so it frees you up from the major downside with syndication, which is all the reporting. I mean, when you syndicate, typically what you want to do is have as few investors as is possible, because then you're not having to report to a whole bunch of people. It's a lot less math and aggravation to track. But with tokenization, it's kind of cool is you don't pay the investor, you pay the token. So whoever holds the token is the one that gets paid. So wherever that electronic token is, it's tracked by the blockchain, knows where it is, and it automatically, if this is your distribution goes to wherever that token is. So that means that instead of having to go through the complicated process, hey, Randy wants to sell half his position because he needs to raise some capital for something else. Well, you don't have to go to the partners. You don't have to take and go through a complicated offering it up to everybody else. You figure out a valuation with somebody else that wants to buy it. I mean, you can offer it to the partners. Obviously, they might pay you more, but you're not limited to that. So it allows you a little bit more flexibility. I have a gal I can send you her information.
How well known, I should say, because it's new to me. I've, like I said, very briefly read about it. Is this something? Is education going to be a tough part of it, or what are your thoughts on that?
The lady I'm sending you to is the white glove intermediary that takes somebody that's doing what you're doing and shows them exactly how to do this. And she's very familiar with the syndication process, all of that fun stuff. She can point you. I mean, literally, she has everybody you'll need, including folks to raise cap, whatever you need. She's a great resource, and you have a conversation with her. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't. But
yeah, it sounds exactly what we're looking for, though. Just to, again, we got to get out our branches and see, every option that's out there, and we're learning as we're going. As I know a lot more about septic tanks and engineering and
than you ever
ADA,
wanted.
ADA compliances and everything else. I've had a good time, but it's amazing what all goes into a project like this.
Parking counts and green space and all these every one of these things you're saying is making me clench as we talk, because I've been there and done that. And much like a vacuum cleaner, Randy, it sucks. But it is a thing that has to be dealt with.
Yeah, and I think on our project, the strength of it is we've gone through that. That's the risk factor, is not knowing. When we bought it, we had no idea what we could end up building. So it was hard to go out there and try to find a partner, try to get it financed, when we didn't know if it'd be a 20-room hotel or 47-room hotel, or we didn't know if we'd have a restaurant. And so we've taken that risk, and the fact that the town's ready to go. Again, I'm excited about it, but we need to find that right partner for sure.
Yeah, no, that's, figuring out how to do the pieces that you don't know, because, when you go from just a development project to now a syndication project, the complexities become manifold. Now you have to take, and you're doing not just a debt piece, you're doing your own cap raise to bring in enough capital to then take an approach the lender to get the remainder of what you need from the lender. The lady's name is Laura Pamatian. I'll get your information after the show, but
sure.
She's really, really amazing. She knows that thing like the back of her hand, and used to do a lot of work out in Hawaii, and I know they've done quite a few tokenization projects in New York. So it's a cool model that maybe give you a cool niche thing to attract some investors that have an appetite for that. Although your rates of return are such that a traditional syndication model should work just fine for you as well.
That sounds great.
Cool.
Yeah, the Outer Banks is we are primed. The luxury market, I've been in real estate for 25 years, and the luxury market has absolutely just exploded. But our hotel, we have very few hotels. We've got about 3,000 hotel rooms in the entire Outer Banks when you have 25,000 plus rental houses. So we don't have very many hotels here, which is unique for an area like this. So we're super excited about the project.
So how much of a cap raise are you looking to do, if you don't mind me asking?
I mean, ultimately, we've got about 5 million equity in a project that, let's just say 20 million. We don't know where the cost. We have 18 million projection to get the whole thing done, but over the last year, several months,
What kind of terms do you have a lender that'll give you terms to get it
We
done?
did. We pulled the plug last year with just the two of us, but the fees is what we really noticed because the lender knew basically they're the only one in town. And we got hit with almost $1 million in just fees with the loan that we were offered, and it was 9% at the time. It was a year, so it wasn't a bad rate. But the fees and the rate was higher during the construction phase. So I think it was going to be over 10%. Ultimately,
was Community Bank.
It was what am I looking for? It's a government loan.
Okay.
SBA loan.
SBA loan, really? And they were looking to raise over coals.
Yeah, because they have to partner with the bank for part of it. They were only going to do up to 50% of it. And so when they had the bank other lenders that were really interested, but the regional banks didn't have, they just don't have the appetite for it right now. The bigger banks do, but we were told our project's not big enough. It's interesting. We were kind of right in between of not big enough for the big banks. The regional banks were hesitant on it, but we had great relationships with a few of them, and they were just saying those fees are triple what they've ever seen. So I think it was.
I mean, one of the things that you could look to do is see if you can get a couple of regional banks to come together on the project and take parts of the debt. Is something we've been successful with. And the one thing I would also tell you is knock on all the doors, because the deal is from one bank to the next, the appetite changes. I mean, like, oh, we never touch that. Knock on the door. Oh my God, that's exactly what we're looking for. They just have their own. Every bank's got their own appetite for what they do, and so it seems to me it's a sizing problem more than anything. Because with 5 million in capital, you're close to what you need for the bank to give you the rest and not have to go through
we were looking at 45% equity in it, and we could get that. I think that's what we could get there if we needed to, if we had the bank ready to go.
Yeah, and so that's the thing. I would get the lender set up. I mean, you're with 5 mil in already. There's no reason why a lender shouldn't be at least talking to you, and especially if you have the ability to take and raise more. You should be able to. I mean, just make sure you don't leave yourself strapped, because as you found, that $8 million project turned into a $20 million project, which by the time it's all said and done might be a $28 million project.
Right. You just don't know.
Liquidity is such a critical piece of. I mean, I'm telling you stuff I know you already know, but I mean, our listeners maybe aren't as familiar. When it comes to all of these projects, no matter how tightly you run the ship, there's always overruns. There's always, hey, look, the pilings we're putting in, they're washing out. We're going to have to take and use this other technique to shore this up. It only costs twice as, that kind of garbage.
And with what's going on now and with the tariff, you just don't know how the economy is going to go as far as building costs, for sure. And it's really tough to estimate.
I can tell you the last go around that we had with the tariffs, with our windows, our impact windows. They're almost all produced outside the U.S. The company that we were using, ES Windows, is produced in Colombia, I believe. And I mean, we got hit with like 20%, and then you had the inflation thereafter. We were getting hit over and over and over again. So yeah, making sure you're in a position where the bank has a real appetite for what you're doing is going to be an important piece of this whole thing.
I think the positive. It is difficult right now to get something like this pushed through, but that limits the competition, so to speak. And when you do, once you get on the other side of it, you're in a very strong position.
I mean, going through the brain damage of getting the entitlements done entitles you to some really good compensation when you find the right group to fund the thing. So I'm excited for you, man. That's good stuff.
Yeah, I appreciate it. I'll follow up with you and let you
Yeah.
know where we're at.
So let me ask you this, Randy. What do you think is the most important thing you've learned in the process of what you've done, of doing what you've done?
I think just, the brain damage is a good analogy, but it's really the biggest thing is even the experts, even the people that have been doing, well-known engineers or well-respected engineers, architects. I'm ignorant to the process, and yet just because of my unwillingness to accept no, unwillingness to just say, well, can we not do it? Or have you just not done it before? Or is there not another way that you have done over the last 20 years? And there are ways around. There's you just have to keep pushing it. And then it's amazing what you could get pushed through. And that's the exciting part. But as you said, the same goes with the things that you think are the easiest
Oh
sometimes
yeah.
to become the most difficult, like that one final parking spot or that, just one issue. So it's a process and you got to be patient. You got to keep your,
The
the
ability
mindset.
the ability of the city to say no to 30 million in tax revenue because of a parking space. I mean, they will do it, and you'll sit there and like your mind can't handle how someone could be so like it. It's one look. We could get rid of the hedge. Let me have one less hedge. We can no. You got to have the green. The calculation says you need this much green. How about we just round down? I get the extra if we just round it a little. No. I mean,
Uh,
it is.
and in
Oh,
a small town like this, or just any small community, the players can change. I
yeah.
mean, the manager can leave that's been telling you all, we had that happen early on, but it's been a great, I mean, I'll tell you, the town of Kitty Hawk has just been fantastic ultimately, and they're behind the project. And so
That is
we are
that is a huge
excited. We
help.
just need to get it over the finish line here.
Yeah. Well, so Randy, I like to give our listeners a chance to get to know you a little bit better. And so these next questions, kind of a lightning roundish sort of questions. Just a quick answer of what you think. What would you say you're most proud of in business you've accomplished?
Hey, just the consistency, the relationships, and the consistency being successful here
Okay.
on the Outer Banks.
Um, what would you say you're most proud of in life that you've accomplished?
Family, kids, just I've got two sets now. I've got my kids ages 25 to 29, and I've got stepchildren. So I'm going through it again, and just those relationships, and the fact that my oldest kid will still call me for advice, even though he's killing it on his own.
Love
So
it, man.
that's yeah,
You must have done something right. All right.
keep
What one
trying.
piece? Yeah. If you had to give our listeners one piece of advice, what would it be?
Oh, don't wait. Just whatever it is, if you're whatever you're thinking to do, don't hold back and question yourself. It's just one life. Whether it's the beach house, when that just obviously I'm going to throw that in there because that's what I sell. But anything in life, don't be afraid to get that new job or whatever you're looking for. It's you got to enjoy it.
Yeah, man, that is important. Um, if you had to narrow it down to one book, what book would you recommend?
Mm, that is a good one. I've given what's the one real easy book is that I just remember off the top of my head is Who Moved My Cheese. And I don't remember who
Who
wrote
wrote
it,
it?
but I used to give it out to my kids. I used to give it out to everybody, and I mean, there's a lot of them. Well, that's one thing. When my kids got out of college, I gave them a list of books I wanted them to read um,
All
to
right.
keep going.
Yeah. Favorite movie of all time?
I mean, grew up in South Bend, Indiana, so I'd love to say Rudy, but it's not my favorite movie. But I love it. Probably Point Break.
Okay.
Just to throw a little surfing in there.
All right. Nothing wrong with that. Um, if you had to pick famous person in history you'd want to meet if you could,
Mm. I would love just to meet my great great grandfather and know his story. He came over. I knew my grandfather well, but he talked about his dad. And so I just would have loved to have sat down and met with him and learned how he got the family started.
All right. What person from your past would you want to sit down with and have lunch with today if you could?
My grandfather, for sure. He's a
Okay.
businessman, very successful, and I kind of missed that part of it.
All right. One piece of advice you'd go back and give a younger version of you.
I think what I started out with this and just follow your dreams. I ended up going to law school. I think really, I went to a great law school too, but it was because I got out of college and didn't know what I was going to do. And I didn't really pursue my passion, what I wanted to do. I love
Gotcha.
sports. I just kept going. So, not follow the trend.
All right. If you had to pick, who would you pick to be stuck in a foxhole with?
My wife, Leanne,
Oh, good kill.
it's an
What?
easy one.
Yeah. What do you do to unwind, Randy?
I'm here on the Outer Banks, so that ocean is my calling. Every day, if I can. We went in it just the other day, and it's only 50. It's risen to 55 degrees, so it's cold. But surf, I mean, just love surfing.
All right. What's next for you? What's the next project? What are you thinking about for the next thing?
Once we get this hotel done, I've been doing a podcast, and Beach Road Banter is what it's called. I'm right here on the beach road here in Kitty Hawk, and just sharing my love, my passion for the Outer Banks. And so I just want to see where that takes me.
Okay. Where can people find you, Randy, if they want to know more about what you're doing or they want to take and get involved in the project or anything like that?
Well, Randy at seacovegroup.com is my email. Just look up Sea Cove and Randy Jones and you'll find me. Or on Spotify, the Beach Road Banter podcast. That is, I think, shedding a lot of light in my personality. It's
Good
bringing
stuff.
out. Yeah.
All right. Well, Randy, thanks so much for hanging out with us today. It was great having you on and getting a chance to chat with you.
I appreciate your time. I'll definitely follow up. You've given me some great insights.
Awesome. Awesome. And thank you to the listeners for spending their time with us. It's always great talking, having you guys here and to listen to us prattle on about all things success and business related. As it turns out, what you see is the thing that I remind you all the time. There's never a good excuse not to know your shit. Till next time, guys.